Good morning, everybody. It's 9:55, so it's a good time to start. More people than I expected. Usually these second days at the conference, people are sleepy because having really good night the day before I did. But I think Pam's talk woke up many people, which is good. Thank you for coming. I'm Marji. I'm a co-founder of a company called Morpht. And I have passion for DevOps, and testing is one of them. So I'm here to talk about secure and quality content and how to achieve it by automating moderation tests with Cypress. So before we dive into testing, which is what I really want to show you, I just quickly run through a few concepts of peer review. What is it? It's a practice of having a second or third set of eyes to check on your work before it reaches its audience. I guess that every one of us have been in a situation when we ask our colleague to read an email we are sending to a difficult client before we actually send it. That's exactly what's peer review about. But of course, in this context, it's like we try to introduce systematic quality assurance in content. Why does it matter? Well, when I was preparing this presentation, I was thinking government, and it was in the talk proposal, government website. So in that case, the content carries the authority and reputation of the organization. These days, like, you cannot just publish article and change it another day. You have things like the Wayback Machine. When it's published once, it's there, you know. And if somebody sees multiple edits, changing content, and it becomes untrustworthy. Sorry, cannot pronounce it properly. Quickly, the review lifecycle. The content travels through various states. You have an editor creating an article, which is a draft. When they are ready, they put it in needs review. Then you might have an approval, come over, review that, publish, and maybe when it's not needed anymore, it gets archived. Note that I'm not deleting, I'm archiving. That's something we will touch base on a little bit later. So what I just said, you saw the content traveling or transitioning from one state to another, and each of these transitions needs to be logged. Who did that, when? And that's to achieve to have the audit trail and accountability, and then that discourages people from quickly approving content and protects people who do the right stuff. When I was researching this, once again, I'm looking forward to show you my Cypress test, but before I want to talk about this, there was something which blew my mind when I realized that as a sysadmin, that content is actually infrastructure. You know, like, content is a security surface. When we say security, we think firewalls, passwords, malware, 2FA. Like, content, if somebody, unauthorized person, can publish an article on a government website, that's a security breach and can have really big implications. There are a few frameworks which do talk about information security. The Protective Security Policy Framework or the Information Security Manual, all of them have this in common: separation of duties, least privilege, and access logging. And the principle of least privilege is like exactly what's content moderation about. You have editors being able only to edit, but not publish, and approvers can publish but not edit. That's actually in there. When it goes wrong, I guess all of us can imagine that, especially in the content of government websites, unauthorized disclosure of embargoed policy announcements, potential legal liability, health websites telling you to do something which can harm you. So the key takeaway is people do need content moderation. It is not negotiable. In Drupal, we are lucky because it is in there. I just want to point out that content moderation workflow module is part of core since 8.4. So it's not like a third-party module you use. It is actually part of the project. You can build workflow in your site without writing any code. When you start looking into that, there are states, transitions and workflows, the keywords. States, we quickly touched that. The state is like a content is a state. It's in draft or it needs review, publish or archive. You define these. The transitions are the movements between the states, and the workflows bundle them together, and you can have multiple workflows for different content types. It is complex. That's why we are going to test it. You are assigning roles to users, and what transitions can they do. And I will show you a realistic workflow just to give you a little picture. So we will just look at the page. We will have two roles, editor and approval, the states it goes through, and there is something which is visibility rules. I will show you straight away. So here we have the editor creating an article. When you create one, you get them draft. Then when you're ready, you make it needs review. That's an editor doing so. Please note that I have something which I call visibility. So this is green. So this is private. It's work in progress. That means that anonymous user cannot see it. They get 403 or 404. And only then you get approver. Hopefully reviews that article and approves it, and it goes to publish. That's when it becomes visible. That's what I'm saying by visibility. 200 when I'm anonymous and coming to see this article. Then you can create a new revision. This is when people very often make mistakes and don't understand. When you actually want to create a new version or edit the document, you are not editing the existing published revision. You create another draft. This is still visible to the anonymous audience, and that draft travels the same path. And it's not needed to archive it. To implement that has several problematic areas. They are technical and social. The technical is that you don't get the roles right. You make them more powerful, or you have missing view permissions. You might be an editor created article in draft, and when it's ready for review, you create it, save it as to review, and suddenly you cannot see it because you don't have the view permission for that state. So it is not trivial to set up. Another pitfall is the configuration drift, that when the workflow degrades over the time as the website exists and people do add another role, or you have staff turnover, when the configuration intent gets lost. It's like, why did we do it that complex? Let's simplify it a little bit, and suddenly you basically make the workflow vulnerable to people abusing it. So the technical challenge is to define it properly, discover your client, implement it, and test it, and keep testing it. And there is one thing I want to social pitfall is that some agencies might have the workflow documented, and they have training for their editors, but that's not the same as enforcing it, right? Like just because you have something documented doesn't mean that people don't deliberately work around something. And very often when we talk to clients, they say, can we just have both roles? We want to be able to edit and publish it straight away, but then you have one people who can be the rogue one, or they want to go fast forward from publish. It's published already. I want to quickly edit it and publish it again. So people always ask for that, and you must tell them we do not recommend that. We can do it if you really insist, but do not, please. And finally, I'm where I wanted to be. I forgot to look at the time. I think I'm good. 10 minutes. So Cypress, for testing these workflows, we at Morpht use Cypress. That's a tool we like. It's a modern front-end testing tool. It's built for web, and that means it runs inside a browser, and therefore it has access to its DOM, network requests, local storage, and cookies. That's what it can do, whatever, and test inside. It's really good. And that's all I need to say about Cypress. I think that everybody here knows what it is. It's just like framework for testing if you don't. But what I really want to introduce is this test helper library. We call it Cypress JSON tests. And it is a NPM package. You just install it as an NPM package. There is a public repo as well. And the objective of that was to be able to quickly add Cypress testing into any project. I think from these of you who were writing a proposal, many years ago we would always put like a testing budget in a project. like for this amount of hours you can have complex testing. The client never chose that option. They never wanted to pay the few extra thousands to get testing. So finally we ended up with having something which can help us to get it done quickly without anybody charging anybody for that. So the objective of this helper is to be able to just pull it in any project, have one command to get it there and one config file, and you can start with testing. The features of that tool, we call it JSON-driven testing. Of course, it is a Drupal integration, and the two validation we implemented so far is status code validation, like that's like whether the page is accessible visible by anonymous user or user with specific role, and the workflow, content workflow I just talked about. So now I'm in the demo part. So let's start with a project when we have this, apologies, when we have that, just need to go here. A project which already has it in there. So I just drop the command line, go to the tests, and there is Cypress test. So, and I will execute. So this is Cypress. I can choose which browser I want to test in. And there are test cases, and let's say I start the validation and it starts driving the browser, Lando Drush, clearing caches, unblocking users, and then it starts driving, creating article, testing, whether you can change statuses and stuff. But before I go into details and walk through that, I want to quickly show you. So that was an existing project. Now we go in another one. This is in DDev. This is actually our CMS Gov Pam just mentioned, sorry. So here, if I want to bring this to the project, let's pretend that I don't have anything here. So I'll just delete this. That was me testing this morning. I forgot to delete that. So going to my slides, I need to install it. That's one thing. And then I need to create that one config file I was talking about using README. So let's just make the directory and open config.json. And take this README, this is the package published. Let's take the config here. Sorry. I can do it. Okay. And we don't need config. These are the users, so we will be just use approver, editor. Yeah, this is mapping roles to edit the users. So I know that a user role editor in this website is called editor 007. Site admin is called role is called admin. And let's just request. Let's get rid of request. I will just do statuses. That's easy to start with. So these are, I'm just like testing here by defining, that's saying that anonymous user, when they come to the home page, they get 200. When anonymous user tries to go admin, they get 404. When admin content, 403. Non-existing page, 404. When I'm editor and go to front end, I expect 200. When I go to admin, I get 200. So this is just a quick one. I define like that. So I define the config, as I said, and now I go to the package, which is a node Cypress JSON test, and I execute it from here, and And you can see here I'm putting a different parameter. Now I'm just saying that's in DDev, so that has a built-in support of various environments. The first one was in Lando, this one is for DDev. Let's see whether I managed to configure it correctly. And the status is, so it's unblocking the 2 users we have, and it's testing, and the test is passing. So share slide. Yeah, I can also, I will show you how I can execute from command line. So was that fast enough? So you could see I had a brand new project, pull down the package, configure one config file, and I have the basics testing done. Of course, I can deep dive in and go a little bit further, and I will. But this didn't cost you anything, it cost you 15 minutes, and you already have like some basic checking that pages exist and return the right status code for the right role. We found out that most of our clients, we are in the GovCMS space, use very similar workflow. So for us, they take one definition, takes just a little bit of rewriting the config file, and you can have this kind of testing in each new project the next day, basically. So now I will just walk you through that. I'll close this. So let's go back to the project which has it defined. We open that. So this is the statuses I just showed you on the new project, and this is the validation, which is creating, I think, new article, and then changing the states into needs review, and then approvers. Here we have editor, approver, site admin. This is happening. So let's just have a look at the configuration of this project. Sorry, it's the fixture directory. That's how. Okay. Just quickly, I want to point out that the documentation we have is pretty good, I believe. That's, if you look at the package here, there's this config to start with, and all the supporting tools or checks are documented here. So I'll just walk you through some of them. Here I'm just defining how to submit a node. Where is the save button? How to find it? The idea of that. Define users, which I'm testing. We have that's this mapping. So editor is called author, approver is user, approver, site admin is called configure GovCMS. So this is just mapping between roles and users. Then I'm validating that if I create node, add article, and fill in these values, I then expect in the next step that this will be an existing URL. So I expect this URL to exist after that, and an editor will be able to check that there is testing article heading with H1 and the title. So this is just like fundamental before you start workflow. And then you have each workflow defined here. So we are creating page as content author. So first, testing page does not exist, anonymous cannot see it. Then we add that page, and we validate that the 2 states, the content moderation states I can see are drafts and needs review. This is the part when I'm validating the workflow. I save that page, and in the next step, suddenly the testing page is not giving me 404, it's giving me 403 because it actually exists, but I'm anonymous here. And then another workflow is changing the draft from needs review from draft to needs review. So you can see this is really simple language when I'm just using a few JSON lines, and I go through the whole workflow. So documented here. Let me go back to my slides. Okay, that was the config JSON. Then let me show you what's under the hood. So here we have this definition of the Cypress test for the statuses. Like, let's see how trivial it is. We basically just iterate. We just go through the users, unlock them, and then we go through all the array of statuses I showed you when I was doing the ad hoc test for the DDev side, and just iterate through it. And if I'm not anonymous, I just log in. Log in by the user and then test that I get the expected status code. This is all. This code is that long, and with that JSON definition, it just tests very quickly. The other one, I just want to show you that here you can define in Cypress your own command. So I'm defining a command called drush, which uses the prefix lendo or ddef and just passes in the parameters. And then you can define your own like Drupal logout, which just visits user logout and clicks it. So you defined, this is all part of the package. You can add your own commands if you need it. Okay. So yeah, the README has all of this documented. And just what's the possible future of this? One, I think that you can put it in the CI, and this is future for you. We already have it in CI. If you are interested in that, I presented in DrupalCon Vienna a talk called GitHub Action Docker Cypress CD CI Nirvana. So that's a presentation which covers how to run this in a GitHub action, on pull request. When you create a pull request or when you're merging pull requests, this is one of the tests which get executed. You can see that there is support for Cypress for GitHub Action. But please go and watch my talk if this is something you are interested in. It goes as far as creating a copy of the Drupal site running locally inside GitHub Action. So the Cypress which runs there can locally test your code inside GitHub Action. That talk covers that. What we want to do with this package potentially in the future, we can rewrite the tool for Playwright, which is a new it's very popular for the last 1 year, like a competitor of Cypress, like Cypress end-to-end testing. Playwright is a new thing, which I can see people have been adopting for the last 6 months a lot. You can create tests for submitting web forms, component testing, search results, you name it. We are open to PRs if you like as open source. There is a public GitHub repo. Please create a pull request if you have any idea, any improvements. And that's all I wanted to show you.